Hello there. Today I've got in my hands a Nintendo 2DS that's seen much better days. This particular console belongs to my nephew, and when he asked me to take a look at it, I couldn't really say no. As you can see, this poor little console has been through quite the adventure. The screen has more scratches than a lottery ticket, and that's just the beginning. The entire console has some serious wear and tear going on. Now, there's actually a game in the slot here, something called Miitopia. I'll be honest, I have absolutely no idea what that is. But hey, at least we know the game slot isn't completely broken. The slip slider, however, that's a different story. This thing has a mind of its own. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We've also got a 4GB SD card in here, which is nice. And oh look, the stylus cover is broken. Fantastic. I'm guessing it won't hold the stylus properly anymore, judging by the fact that the stylus is actually lost God knows where. And wait, what's this? There's a piece of paracord stuck in one of the corners. Neat. Alright, time to break out my trusty iFixit toolkit. And before anyone asks, no, I'm not sponsored by them. My wife actually got me this kit for my birthday a few years back, and I absolutely love it. One of my main goals for this channel is to eventually get sponsored by iFixit. Maybe one day I'll get there. Let's start by removing the screws from the back of the console. There are quite a few of these little guys, so I need to keep track of where they all go. And right off the bat, I'm noticing something interesting in the battery compartment. There's paper towel stuff in there to hold the battery in place. That's creative. I hope this isn't a major problem, but we'll see. I'm trying to remove the paper towel situation and get the battery out. Whoever put this paper towel in here was really committed to the idea. There we go. Finally got it out along with the battery. Now I can continue with the rest of the screws on the back. And with the back cover removed, we get our first look at what we're dealing with here. Oh boy. The amount of debris and grime in here is impressive. This console has clearly lived a full life. And what's this? Feather? Actual feather. I can only assume at this point a domestic bird decided to perform some unauthorized maintenance on this console. Either that or my nephew has been using this console as a pillow. Moving on, I need to detach the side panels and the L and R buttons. These buttons have tiny springs attached, and if I lose those, we're going to have a problem. Next up is what I'm pretty sure is the Wi-Fi card. It's this little board connected to what looks like an antenna via thin wire. I'll be completely honest, I know almost nothing about these old handheld gaming consoles, so I'm learning as I go here. But hey, that's half the fun, right? Now I'm removing the screws and disconnecting the tiny ribbon cable for the joystick. These ribbon cables are always nerve-wracking because they feel like they're going to snap if you look at them wrong. Now the joystick itself comes out pretty easily. Time to remove the screws holding the motherboard in place. I need to make sure I disconnect all the other ribbon cables connected to the motherboard first. Looks like I missed a screw. Of course I did. With the motherboard finally out of the way, I can see even more grime and dirt that needs cleaning. Yay! Now I'm removing the plastic slider mechanism. Looking at it, it doesn't actually seem broken or damaged. So maybe it just wasn't seated properly, or maybe it just needs a good cleaning. Let's hope it's that simple. I'm also removing some of the other tiny plastic and silicone components, things like the membrane for the D-pad and other buttons. These little parts have a talent for disappearing into alternate dimensions, so I'm keeping them all in one place. Next, I'll try to remove the screen. Even before disassembling this, I saw a lot of grime and dirt through the front lenses, so I know I'll need to clean at least the edges of the display. And yep, just as I expected, there's dirt everywhere. Whoops, I just turned the front piece upside down, and a bunch of plastic pieces decided to make a break for freedom. Hopefully I didn't lose anything important. Now I'm giving the board a closer inspection, like I know what I'm doing. Looking at this board, it seems like someone else has worked on this console before. I can see what looks like flux residue in several spots, so either this has been repaired before or someone really enjoyed practicing their soldering skills on it. Let me check the SD card slot. It looks good, no bent pins or obvious damage. The game card slot also looks fine to me. At least we've got that going for us. Alright, time to start the cleaning process. I'm filling up a container with some IPA and dropping all the tiny plastic and silicone bits in there to soak. While those are taking their bath, I'll move on to cleaning the screen with some alcohol and Q-tips. Next, I'll grab a toothbrush and go to town on this motherboard. I'm cleaning the charging port, the game card slot, the SD card slot, the volume slider, basically Basically, if it's on this board, it's getting the toothbrush or the Q-tip treatment. I'm also giving the red plastic side pieces a thorough cleaning, along with the battery contacts and the analog stick. For the analog stick, I'm using some contact cleaner to make sure I get any gunk that might be hiding deep inside the mechanism. While I was cleaning the stylus cover, I accidentally broke off more pieces. This really highlights just how old and fragile this console has become. The plastic is basically held together by nostalgia at this point. Time to clean the front piece of the shell. First, I need to remove the plastic tip of the analog stick, which is turning out to be more complicated than I thought. Then I need to remove the bottom touchscreen glass so I don't damage it during cleaning. Let me see if I can detach the home button. Now I need to remove the top screen glass as well, and then going full cleaning mode on this front piece. There are so many little gaps where dirt has been accumulating over the years. I'm just now realizing I probably should have worn gloves for this. Oh well. Too late now. I'm cleaning the edges of the top screen glass and putting it back in place. Then doing the same for the bottom touch glass, but I'm noticing the adhesive tape on the top glass isn't holding as well as it used to. Age has not been kind to this adhesive, so I'm removing the top glass again and peeling off the old tape. Unfortunately, I don't have any replacement double-sided adhesive tape for this, so I'm going to improvise with some T8000 glue. If it's good enough for the smartphone screens, it should work for this old 2DS. I'll do the same for the bottom touch glass. The small plastic and silicone parts have been soaking long enough, so I can clean those now. My work area is looking pretty disgusting at this point, so I'll clean that up a bit before moving on. Much better. Time to put this console back together, enough to test it and see where we stand. Okay, let's see. Well, at least it turns on, which is always a good sign. The D-pad works, the joystick is responsive, the SD card is still being recognized, but the home button... nope, still not working. That's disappointing. The sleep slider, however, is working perfectly now. Sometimes the simplest solution really is just giving something a good cleaning. Okay, I guess I need to order a new home button.
One eternity later.
Hello there. It has been a few weeks and my replacement parts have arrived. Besides the new home button, I also grabbed some new charging ports because it seemed like the console was disconnecting too easily during charging. We'll see how this goes. Okay, let's take the console apart again to take a closer look at the charging port. Yeah. It does feel like there's a bit of a play in it, though not too much. Looking at the pins inside, the old port definitely looks different from the new one. The pins on the new port seem more prominent. Okay, let's just replace it. First, I'm covering any parts that might melt with some Kapton tape, then I'm blasting the old port with some hot air. Hopefully I don't damage anything else in the process. That was actually easier than I expected. Let's clean the pads with my soldering iron and some soldering wick, and then clean up the area with some IPA. Looking more closely at the old charging port compared to the new one, the replacement I ordered, it's slightly different. The background legs are a bit too long and the pins are bent at 90 degrees instead of being straight. I could swear I ordered 2DS replacement ports, but this is what I got. I can modify one of them to make it work, I guess. The newbie editor here, I forgot to film how I modified the new port. Sorry about that, but hopefully you will not need to do it if you ordered the right one from the beginning. Back to the video. I'm tinning the new port and adding some fresh leaded solder to the motherboard, and then I'm going to attach the new port in place. Once again, this was easier than I expected. I'll add some extra solder to the ground legs to make sure it's nice and solid. I'm also verifying that the pins are attached properly, which they are, nice, and it also works. You can see the charging LED lighting up, double nice. Now for the home button replacement. These new buttons don't come with adhesives, so I'm using the T8000 glue again. Let's put everything back together enough to test this. Okay, let's see. Well, fudge. Still not working. Maybe it needs more cleaning? Let me give it another shot. Nope. Still nothing. I need to think about this.
A few moments later.
Okay, I want to try removing the connector from the motherboard and then reattach it. Maybe that will solve the issue. Since I don't have a microscope, this is going to be what I like to call fun. And by fun I mean potentially frustrating. Let's see. That's definitely too much flux. But here we go. I'm heating up from the bottom so I don't melt the connector itself. That was more challenging than I hoped, but I got it off. Next, let's clean the area and apply fresh solder to the pads. Time to place the port back where it belongs, align it properly, and reverse the process. I think it's attached. Let me clean up the area and verify all the pins. Everything appears solid. I'm feeling somewhat optimistic about this. Time to put everything back together and test it again. Okay, attempt number 3? Yeah, I think it's 3. Nope. Still not working, but at least the rest of the console is functioning properly. Let's just screw everything back into place. Of course, I have one screw left over. Hopefully it wasn't holding anything that important. Now let's test the game that came with it. I have absolutely no idea what I'm supposed to do in Topia, and it doesn't seem like all the buttons are working properly. Let me try the built-in demo instead. Oh, okay, now the buttons work fine, so I guess that other game was just unique. Editor newbie again. I didn't want to give up on this console completely, so I tried reflowing the home button connector one more time off camera, but it still doesn't work. That sucks. Sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to state this before wrapping up. Okay, so everything works except for that stubborn home button. Despite that one failure, I'd say this was mostly a success. The console is clean, the sleep slider works, and the charging port is solid and also working flawlessly. As you can see from this shot where I plug it in and wiggle the crap out of it. I'm actually pretty proud of that port swap. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this partially failed repair attempt. If you did, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps motivate me to keep making these videos, even if it's on a monthly basis. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!